right, guys, welcome back. Today, what we're going to go ahead and talk about is security infrastructure, more specifically with regards to ports. Guys, this is an important video. Please watch this video to the end, not for me, but for you. The reason why I say that is because I got my CCNA certification and ports were a major topic. I'm studying for my cybersecurity certification from Comptia Security Plus, and ports, once again, are a topic, a major topic. And the reason why I say study this information, I have a gift for you at the end, okay? Because sometimes, guys, if you know the correct port number, but you don't even know what they're asking, but you know the right port number, you can get the answer right. This is easy points, guys. Easy points, both for the CCNA and both for the CompTIA Security Plus. So if you're just like, hey, I don't know, I feel really nervous, so on and so forth. This right here, guys, easy points. Okay, so let's get into this security infrastructure. Mind you, security infrastructure, it's the conglomerate number of things that's going on. Today, we're just going to focus specifically on the ports, but we do have the definition of security infrastructure. So, what is security infrastructure? It's basically cybersecurity, a combination of hardware, software, policies, and practices that organizations use to protect information. Okay, so hardening your security infrastructure. Infrastructure is basically kind of like a house and everything in it. Okay, what is your foundation? um, what are the keys, what are the locks, do you have cameras, so on and so forth. So your security infrastructure is everything as a whole. You're not just looking at the hardware, you're looking at the software, and you're looking at the certain policies and your practices that you as an organization will go ahead and implement. Okay, that basically the organization's culture of cybersecurity, so on and so forth. So let's go on to the next one, which is basically the topic of the day: ports and protocols. Okay, ports and protocols. Is this like a port where you would go ahead and dock a ship so you can load it up and go on to your destination? No, a port is a logical communication. Okay, it's not a physical thing in the computer or in your laptop or in the server. It is logical. Okay, it's a communication endpoint that exists on a computer or server. Okay, just think of it like this. You have an enormous amount of data, okay? And within that data, you want to go ahead and start to go through a fine-tooth comb to organize that data. And ports and protocols is just one destination that the data will go through amongst different and several other destinations. Just remember, ports are logical. Okay, kind of like your IP address, that's logical. Your MAC address, that would be considered physical. Okay, so let's go on to word of the day. This section here is a new section that we have where we go ahead and try to increase our cybersecurity vocabulary, guys. Something that we're going to go ahead and implement on every video moving forward. And let's see what word of the day is today. And that would be exploit. Can you spell it? EXPLOIT. And what would be the definition? An exploit is a technique used by threat actors to leverage a vulnerability in order to compromise a system. If the vulnerability is a weak password, a dictionary attack might be the exploit. An exploit might be simple to carry out. Someone left the default password on the router, or it might require top tier technical knowledge or custom software. Okay, guys. So this word here, all right, and I forgot to say, can you give us an example? Okay. Um, it looks like the organization's SQL server was exploited by what would be SQL input. Um, I don't know if that was exactly the greatest example, but nonetheless, an exploit. Let me give you. Let's step out of the world from cybersecurity. Okay, let's go ahead and say football. Okay, we all like football, at least some of us do. So football. Let's assume that the let's assume that the tight end, okay, he has an injured rib. Okay, the defense finds out that he has an injured rib, and they continuously ram the tight end in the rib. Okay, that would be, hey, there's a vulnerability. Okay, so the tight end has a vulnerability. He has injured ribs, and now the defense is exploiting the vulnerability. And the reason why I use that example, okay, amongst getting out of the realm of cybersecurity and using an example that we could all comprehend, okay, what's the difference between an exploit and a vulnerability? Because that's going to be something that's going to come up a lot. And that might be a question on the exam, or that might actually be an interview question. Okay. An exploit demands action. Okay. An exploit demands action. So that basically is letting you know that there that some type of action was taken. So for example, having a weak password would be a vulnerability, but it is not an exploit until someone goes ahead and implements an action and cracks the weak password. Okay, so keep that in mind with the difference between an exploit and a vulnerability. Okay, because sometimes it's very confusing. I've been confused before in the past. If I'm wrong, go ahead, let me know. But as far as I know, that is the major difference between an exploit and a vulnerability. Okay, vulnerability, your tight end has cracked ribs. Okay, an exploit would be the defense actually targeting the ribs of that tight end. Okay, so that would be the major difference. An exploit demands action. Okay, an exploit actually goes ahead and takes advantage of that vulnerability. Let's go on and continue with our security architecture with regards to ports. And I bring this up, this would be the OSI model, guys. Okay, this here is something you don't necessarily need to know for your Comptia Security Plus, but this is something I highly, highly recommend that you go ahead and get comfortable with regards to networking. This is something you would definitely need to know for your CCNA, and honestly, this is something that you would definitely need to know moving on with your IT career if you want to go ahead and have in-depth knowledge and be considered a competent employee. This is something I would highly recommend you know. Okay, and there's an acronym. There's a ton of them. The one that really sticks to me is all people seem to not date princesses. Okay, another one was please don't. Um, Please don't never throw away sausage, pepperoni. Yeah, I forgot that one, guys. Or all another. Yeah, I totally butchered that one. But you'll find your own acronym. Another one was all people seem to need data processing, and that's another one. That one I feel is a little more neutral. Once again, all people seem to need data processing. Okay, application, presentation, session, transport network, data link, physical. And this is something that you would go ahead, this is a framework with regards to the network to go ahead and start to basically go ahead and um, go ahead and troubleshoot things. The reason why I bring this up is because technically your ports would be considered right around, depending on who you ask, I realized anywhere between layer 4 and 5. Remember, layer 4 is dealing with TCP IP, and it's also dealing with what would be UDP. So, transmission control protocol. Remember, you have your three-way handshake, and that is basically how that would be considered a protocol with regards to how computers communicate and how they're sending data. With regards to user data, user user data protocol, UDP. That's something that it would basically go ahead and it's considered a protocol, and that is going ahead and distinguishing how data would go ahead and be transmitted. Okay, so just remember this. Don't focus on too much of this. This is something that you would want to go ahead and maybe study on the side, but this is something I highly recommend that you would know. Physical, that one's pretty simple. That would be something like if you cut the wire. Hey, the reason why your network isn't working is because your wire is cut, or hey, it doesn't seem to have a good connection, or hey, the wire is bending, or hey, the dog was chewing on the wire, which actually happens more than you think. Data link, remember that's your MAC address. Network, that's logical, that's your IP address. Application, that's literally your application that you're using. Remember, OSI model is the older model. They do have the new TCP/IP model as well, but nonetheless, this is something I recommend. Let's move forward. So this is something you definitely want to know as well. Inbound port. Logical communication opening on a server that is listening for a connection from a client. Okay, guys, remember the way we've designed computers. Okay, and there's more than one way, but the most common way, since I can remember, and the thing that we use the most, guys, especially when it comes to data, is you have your server and you have your client. Okay, it's as simple as that. You have your server and you have your client. Okay, and in every network, that's something that you're going to run into over and over and over again. Hey, I want to get to this website. That website is providing services. Okay, hence there's a server out in the ethernet that's providing you with that data of information. You are trying to access that information, so technically you would be considered a client. Server, client. So inbound port would basically be opening a port on the server. Okay, so think of the server as the main focus, so to speak. Okay, so you need to access the server, then that would be an inbound port. Okay, on the other hand, outbound port. Once again, logical communication opening. Okay, created on a client. Okay, so the outbound is going to be on the client. Just think of the server is literally the main man, so to speak. Okay, the server would be the main man, so to speak. Whoever is providing the services is considered the server, and that would need an inbound port to be accessed, and it's going to be sent to the outbound port, which would be the device requesting the services, which is also known as a client. Okay. And this right here, guys, this is something you definitely need to know. Network ports, well known ports 0 through 1023. This is really simple to memorize, right? You go from 0 to basically just think of 123 with the 0 in between, 1023. Okay, registered ports. This goes from the next number, which would be 1024, all the way to 49,151. Then you have 49,152, all the way to 65,565. Well-known ports, registered ports, dynamic ports. The good news is you don't have to memorize 65,565 ports. You just have to memorize a little few, okay, compared to these numbers. So let's actually go ahead. I promised you guys a gift at the end. And I told you before, and I'll say it again, please go ahead. If you're really serious about your IT career, this is something that you need to study. Print it out, keep it in your pocket. Whenever you have 5 minutes, go ahead and study a port or two, and then cycle and repeat for the next forever, as long as you need it, so to speak, until you have actually gone ahead and memorize it. But you will literally get questions right just because you know the port number. Okay, even if you know what the question is asking, the question might be asking, and before I give you guys the sheet, I'm gonna go ahead and I'll give you an example. The question might be asking, and I'm gonna be hyperbolic here, but the question might be asking, What equation did NASA use to go on the moon on Apollo 7? Please identify the equation. Also, they used port 80 in addition to the equation. What is the answer? A, B, C, or D? And you might be laughing, but that's literally something that you will see. Okay, so if I asked you right now, port 80, would you be able to provide the protocol? Okay, what protocol goes in, or protocol policy goes on port 80? Okay, let's actually get to it here. So voila. Okay, so I actually took some time. I took some notes from my studies, and these are the ports that you definitely want to go ahead and remember. So remember, our port numbers are what would be our common ports, right? Would be 0 all the way to 1023, but you would just need to memorize these ports here. These are something that I recommend. And look at this. So, protocol number 80, that's going to be HTTP. What does HTTP stand for? Hypertext Transfer Protocol. What does it use? TCP or UDP? 80, that would use TCP. What is its basic description? Used for insecure web browsing. Okay, so another question would be, hey, we're using HTTP on port 80. Is that a secure web browser? No, it's not. Okay, what other protocol would you recommend, and what is its port number? Oh, we would need to go to 443, HTTPS, Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. Okay, it's still TCP, and it provides secure web communication. So once again, guys, this is something that it's literally just brute force, so to speak, where it's just going ahead and going through these, seeing them over and over, studying them, knowing them, getting familiar with them. And like I said before, you're going to remember me, entry level IT, YouTube. When you literally take your test and you see a question, you're like, oh, thank you, easy points, on to the next one. Okay, guys, so just keep that in mind. These are the protocols that are recommended for you to know, be familiar with, and be able to go ahead and use. So I'm gonna go ahead, I should be able to put this here on the link, and we will see you guys on the next one.